Barberton is a community that has figured out a way to make things happen at the local level together. To do it, they made difficult choices, including raising the local income tax to provide funds for roadway and infrastructure improvements. Barberton was the recipient of the 2013 Connecting Communities Planning Grant Award, and the goal of the grant was to connect the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail and bring people to their downtown, whether it was recreational visitors or longtime residents who needed a new reason to spend time. It wasn't an easy challenge. There was no trailhead near downtown, and the trail was separated from Barberton by a canal and a river. However, with much determination, the city of Barberton created partnerships, found funding resources, and developed the Magic Mile, a one-mile loop which connects the city's downtown to the Towpath, aimed to improve the connection for all users, pedestrians, cyclists, and even automobiles. Barberton knew both the importance of the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail and their downtown. In the last 2 years, the city and their partners have made investments in infrastructure to create an arts and entertainment district unique to Barberton. With a thriving movie theater, live theater, coffee shop, and art space, and of course, beautiful Lake Anna, Barberton is becoming a destination for recreation, dining, and entertainment. Before I introduce the panelists, Barberton did put on a short video that we're going to show to kick this thing off.
We're on the Towpath Trail here in Barberton, right next to the connector bridge going into downtown. We have a kiosk welcoming people on the towpath to Barberton. Moving east over to the connector bridge. That was a huge project for the city of Barberton, working with the Barberton Community Foundation, Environmental Design Group, the Barberton Kiwanis, and a lot of other groups to put this in. It's a direct connector bridge for towpath users into downtown, and obviously for Barbertonians onto the towpath. As we get on the other side here, we worked with the Barberton Community Foundation and Medical Mutual for some funding for additional signage directing people into downtown, and we'll have some pictures of that here as we move forward. So we're on the west side of the Worcester Road Robinson Avenue Bridge. Coming off the towpath over the bridge, you see all the partners who had played a part in creating the downtown towpath connector trailhead into downtown Barberton. We're going to move forward working with the foundation and Medical Mutual on the Magic Mile, which is a 1 mile loop coming off of the towpath through downtown Barberton, through the Arts and Entertainment District, and circling around back to the towpath. So what we're trying to do is create some synergy here in Barberton between the towpath connector bridge, downtown, beautiful Lake Anna Park, the Historic District, and the Arts and Entertainment District, bringing people into Barberton with all the great things that we have to offer, and having the downtown full of people and flourishing once again.
When the mayor came to us with the vision of an art and entertainment district, the first order of business was to get the Lake 8 open. NDS was able to make the purchase, the city helped us with the financing, and then we found an excellent operator, and we're happy to report that the Lake 8 is pulling between 100 and 110,000 people on an annual basis into the downtown area of Barberton. So the second part of the Art and Entertainment District was to have a quality art gallery and coffee shop. So NDS established Cave, which you see over my shoulder, which is a high-end coffee shop. And then to my left, you'll see the art gallery that we installed. Both this and the ACOT facility across the street, which we'll talk about in a minute, is now being managed by ArtSpace in Akron, which is a critical next step in the development of the Art and Entertainment District. With Cave and Nine Muses open, we started getting the attention of local artists who were interested in having space where they could work. So NDS actually opened ACOT, which is an art center. We established resident artists and art classes. In the development, we noticed that we needed to take the facility to a different level. So we had conversations with ArtSpace and finally convinced them that this project would work for them. And so they came in and they now own and operate ACOT. One of the purposes of a community development corporation is to attract other investors to the area. This is an example of that. This is the new home of Ignite Brewing Company. They'll be establishing additional seating space and a beer garden in the front, which will add to the art and entertainment district. It's exactly this kind of investment that NDS hoped to accomplish with the establishment of the Lake 8 and the Cave and Nine Muses and ACOT.
In late September, we'll be here in downtown Barberton for our Walk of Fame induction, Tuscany on Tusk, with the light streaming across the street, and our famous Mum Festival. So a lot of things going on centered in downtown, around Lake Anna and our downtown historic and arts and entertainment district. Everything that we've discussed and shown you today started with a grant from AMATS for Connecting Communities. So that's where it all started. Very important that AMATS, what they do and the grants that they provide, because you never know what that first grant is going to spiral into.
So she says it's time that I be going on, 'cause there are better things out there for you. She says that every time I see you, I know you wish.
Introduce our panel. I think I'm going to start an agency and hire the mayor to be my first client and go to Hollywood and make a new career for himself. I'd like to introduce our panelists today. First, down at the bottom, down at the far right, or my far right, is Dave. Yeah. Is Dave Vaughan of Neighborhood Development Services. Then we have Debby Rolland from the Barberton Community Foundation, Mayor William Judge of Barberton, and then our moderator Alex Pesta, who's the city architecture who helped with the initial Connecting Communities planning grant. And I will put it over to Alex to moderate the discussion.
Give me for 1 second. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'd like to thank Curtis, Heather, staff, everyone at AMATS for the opportunity, certainly for today, and also certainly with the Connecting Communities grant. I'm going to actually sit down because I don't want to take anything away from the wonderful panel that we have. I will say that over the last 18 months, since City Architecture has been blessed to work with this crew, it's been a lot of fun. We challenge each other. I think we probably annoy each other quite a bit during the process, but we do it with a lot of respect in order to advance Barberton the best that everyone can. So I'm going to ask my first question as I sit down. I'm going to ask the question to each one of the panelists from your perspective and from your agency's perspective. What were the main opportunities that you saw? And I'm going to be very specific with the time stamp of 2012. When we started this process, for today, we had constant coming back to the year 2012 when it was a critical point in the city's recent history, and it was a critical point where there was decisions to be made as far as direction with downtown in particular, with other agencies, with the community foundation that could really elevate and advance the city to take advantage of some opportunities that were there. So before I turn it over, on the screen there are a lot of words. I don't expect everybody to read those. What we had a challenge with, and I think it was a very good challenge, was as we were building the timeline to kind of outline our discussion for today, we ran out of space on a single PowerPoint slide. So I think that's a testament to the work that the mayor has done, his staff, his team. There are a lot of good things that are happening. I'm guessing from most of the people in the room, you might not be fully aware of what has happened, and that's why we're here collectively to AMATS and the Connecting Communities grant. You're going to hear a lot from our panelists today, the value that that has, not only from the planning process, but some of the secondary and tertiary spin-offs that come with that. It's about having discussions, it's about listening, and it's about connecting a lot of the dots that I think otherwise would not go connected without the granting opportunity that is afforded by that. So with that, we're going to have a rolling slideshow in the back, just kind of some images from the planning process, some of the things that have been accomplished, and then we will kick off our discussion.
Well, coming into office in 2012, my goal is to improve the quality of life for Barberton residents and businesses. Obviously, that means something different to everyone, and there's a lot that goes into that. As an elected official, as other elected officials know, you want to grow your economic base and income taxes. It's the bread and butter of any municipality. So how do we bring people from outside of Barberton into Barberton to spend their money and to partake in everything we have? How do we keep Barberton residents in town? How do we bring business in? And how do we have existing business expand and grow? So those were some of the things we looked at. We really did put together a SWOT analysis. What opportunities were there, what were the assets of the community, what were the liabilities of the community, and how to address those, and put all that together. So we worked very hard, first assembling a team, coming into office with the same mindset, real go-getters, and how can we build and foster relationships with various agencies, including NDS and the foundation, among others, because governments can't do it themselves. You just don't have the budgets, you don't have a lot of times you don't have the expertise. So fostering and building those relationships with other agencies is very, very important. So that was one of the first steps that we took.
So I came into the Barberton Community Foundation at the end of 2012, and within the first couple of weeks of starting, I got a call from Curtis. And I came from the Towpath Trail project, so I'm very familiar with the economic driver that the Towpath Trail brought to the community. And one of the challenges we had was there were trailheads before you would get into downtown Barberton and after you would get pass through downtown Barberton. So these 300,000 plus users of the Towpath Trail from those particular sections were totally bypassing downtown. And so one of the things that Curtis and I talked about was the Connecting Communities grant and the ability for that to really develop into something of a larger scope. And so shortly after that phone call, he and I began talking, and the mayor assembled the team. We really looked at how we could make that connection. And so the bridge being one of those major connectors into downtown. And so we looked at that as part of the planning process and said, how can we get these users off of the trail into downtown? And one of those obviously was funding that bridge. So as a community foundation, the city is one of our supporting organizations, the cities and the schools. So a lot of our funding does go towards city projects, the mayor's priorities, and then certainly our beautiful high school that we have. And so a lot of our funding does do that. And so working with the mayor, identifying that bridge as a top priority for the city, we felt very comfortable with that economic driver and that contribution of those funds, which was a $500,000 project, and we contributed about $250,000 of that. But we also brought in community partners. So we brought in Alcoa, the Kiwanis, as mentioned, the Ohio Canal Association, Metro Park serving Summit County. So we knew this was going to take a collaborative effort in order to get completed.
So MDS has been working with the city on the housing side for a number of years. And then the mayor got elected and laid out a very clear vision for the Art Entertainment District. Our involvement really started with when the Lake 8 closed. We knew nothing about the movie business, but we knew that if we put together the right development team, we could reopen it and reestablish it. And then again, the second phase was really having a community meetings place. An avenue to kind of kick off the art gallery itself and the art. And so that's what led to the Nine Muses Cave development.
Okay, and what I can say is the urban planner, or one of the urban planners in the room, when City Art was brought on board, so all of this had happened kind of in advance of really kicking off the Connecting Communities grant. And from our perspective, we saw this as all this kind of these launching points that were all happening some sort of connected and coordinated effort. But the plan quickly changed its focus from looking at very specific corridors to what real connections could happen. You know, the establishment of the Arts and Entertainment District. So I'm going to go back to you, Dave, and then I'm going to kind of work this way. But as far as the establishment of the Arts and Entertainment District, you know, NDS's role, he said he didn't know anything about the movie industry, so just to provide a little bit of context, downtown Barberton has an 8-screen movieplex that runs first-run movies, which I think in a city that size, certainly in that location, is rare. A lot of the places that we work, unfortunately, we're dealing with a shell of a former theater building, whether it's live or a movie. Down the street on Tuscaroras, or Tusk as it's called, is a live-action theater, a children's theater, Lake Anna, which you'll see in some of the photographs that are cycling through. There are a lot of assets and amenities that this plan could kick off. So as far as you changing, or NDS changing between outside of that comfort zone a little bit, can you just kind of give us a little idea of why you chose to go that direction?
Well, again, I think it started with the mayor's vision, and there were components already there. The live theater was already there, the bookstore was there. So some of the pieces of our entertainment district were there. But I think that the Lake Aid was so significant to the community that NDS was willing to come out of the box, if you will, to take that on. We also tend to get into projects we know nothing about, which is really kind of cool. And so it is really about what kind of development team you put together. Working with the city, they were just an outstanding partner. And when we were going through the process, not only on the lake, but also at Cave, the communication back was, we're behind you, we have your back if this doesn't work. We're pleased to announce that both are working very well. But I think that was really a big part of the process, was the city saying, we're with you.
Well, if I can interject as well, this wasn't just a leap from NDS to go into an industry that they knew nothing about. This is also the time period, if you remember, where the movie industry itself was changing and switching all the theaters into digital, and that was at a very high cost. So not only were they jumping into an area that wasn't, that they really knew little about, but it's also at a high cost of taking over the theater and switching to digital, which there was a lot of education in that level as well.
Mayor, as far as, you know, kind of your vision and part of your decision-making process and your team's process, I would imagine where the city has been, or had been, and where it was, did you receive pushback as far as investing or looking at a core community, specifically the trailhead connection, and also with the opening or the investment in the partnership with?
So, you know, I've spoken to a lot of different people out in the country, whether it's the mayor of Sacramento, Kevin Johnson, or the township trustees out of the state of Texas, certain communities, and they all have the same message. You can't have a thriving downtown these days without embracing the arts and entertainment at some level. And that's something that the city of Barberton has never done. And as Dave mentioned, we had all the nuts and bolts right on Tuscaroras Avenue, a block away from the lake, the library, a movie theater, live movie theater, photographer, a few bars and restaurants. You had it all there, bookstores. So it was kind of easy to put that in. There was some pushback, which was interesting, because you have people who would go and travel to other parts of the country and come back and say, we just came back from this city, and oh my gosh, it's really cool, why can't we do this here in Barberton? And so we would start doing that, and then they would say, well, wait a minute, I don't know if we can really do that. We've never done that before. It's a new territory. So trying to calm the fear and laying out the plan for everyone was very important, keeping the lines of communication open. For the Towpath Trail, again, kind of new territory. The Towpath has been there, people have used it. We didn't realize until Metro Parks told us that that was used over 300,000 times in a year. We only have a mile or two in the city of Barberton. So that spoke a lot to us. How do we get those people downtown? How do we attract Barberton residents who aren't using the Towpath to use it? So there was some pushback on the funding for the bridge and for the whole plan. But as people use the Towpath and they see the connectivity, they see some of the pictures, and some of them are on the slideshow of bicycles lined up on the road. That's pretty awesome. And if locals aren't buying into it fully at this stage yet, other people are, but that attraction helps the locals and the residents buy into it. So we've had some pushback, but I think anytime change happens, and change is difficult, you always have pushback.
And one of the things I would add to that as well is the 50-plus bikers that we've seen come in, they also want to stop for Barberton chicken. So we've seen that as an increase in, and an opportunity for those restaurants to put bike racks. They're often tying their bikes up to chain link fences or something of that sort. So we're seeing this really momentum going for making Barberton a pedestrian, bicycle-friendly community. And as the mayor mentioned, the foundation, that was a very significant grant for us. We typically only have about $250,000 a year to grant once we award or pay up the high school payment. And so for us to be able to make that kind of investment into the community was a very large investment for us. And obviously we get some thoughts and things that aren't necessarily positive, but I think the positive comments we got far outweigh any negative comments, because the Towpath Trail is one that you can't argue as far as the contribution to the communities from a quality of life and an economic development perspective.
And Debbie, I'm going to follow up to that, which we affectionately call the Rolland Bridge. Can you expand a little bit on, and we've talked about the bridge, I'm sure you've heard us say the bridge. Can you kind of give some context and kind of background on actually what the bridge is and what it does?
Sure. So in my role at the Ohio Canal Coalition, which was the organization working on the development of the Towpath Trail, prior to coming to Barberton, I actually had been to Barberton several occasions looking at connectivity. We've always identified the Towpath Trail as the spine through the county, but then as that was becoming developed, it became opportunities to make those connections to the Towpath Trail. And so one of the things that I worked on was actually looking at that potential bridge connection. I remember being approached many times by Summit County Council members, wanting to get creative. How can we get this bridge funded? We need to get this bridge connection. And so I worked with Joe at the City of Barberton for many years looking at this potential connection. But quite frankly, one of the biggest obstacles was funding. We just could not seem to raise the funding in order to do that, because there was a lot of opportunities to fund other projects, and this was one of them that we just couldn't do. So that was a barrier initially. So coming to Barberton Community Foundation and the City of Barberton, and then talking to Curtis, that became pretty evident that this was something that we wanted to really be able to see if we could get behind and become a champion for.
So Dave, I'm going to ask you, these infrastructure investments we're having, are these being planned for? With NDS's investment with the theater, you double down with Cave and 9 Muses, and then you triple down with Towpath, which is the Arts Center on Tusk. Can you kind of just outline why and how your organization is making decisions to continue this momentum and continue to build on what's been done previously?
Yeah,
I'm going to follow up, sorry, and then what is your next step?
Okay. It's a little bit of a challenge because it sounds like we know what we're doing. And we truly have kind of stepped into this step by step, trying to analyze what's needed and what's next. So as an organization, we are primarily a housing organization. We're a Neighborhoods America organization, a nonprofit, by the way. And so we've been able, through our other activities, to generate some funding opportunities for ourselves. And that allows us then to do these kinds of ventures. We can take the funds we earn off the housing programs and step into the community development program, which is really where my heart always has been, because community development is really, it's holistic. It's not just about housing. It's not just about economic development. It's about schools. It's about transportation. It's a holistic process. So, Cave came about because we knew we needed kind of a center of gravity for the street, a meeting place. And so we put in Cave and 9 Muses, which is the same facility. We put in garage doors, we put in Wi-Fi, we put in seating, and so it's really become kind of a community grounding point. ACOT really developed out of 9 Muses. We started getting more and more demand for resident art space. ACOT with major help of the city. We don't own that building, we just lease it. And they pay for the utilities, which makes a big difference. And then we took ACOT to what we thought was a reasonable level, but we don't speak art. And so it really became, we kind of hit a top level, and so that's when we reached out to ArtSpace, who has become an additional partner in downtown, and I think is going to really make a huge difference in ArtSpace and in activities.
So from our perspective, when we started to work in earnest with these guys, and when the grant really got up to speed, we saw a lot of people doing a lot of different things, working towards a common goal. The bridge, the construction of the bridge was really, I think, a pivotal moment from an access standpoint as far as tapping into the 300,000 users of the Towpath Trail. In our work, so in full transparency, I was in Indianapolis earlier this week to study the cultural trail. If you haven't been to Indianapolis to see the Indy Cultural Trail, it is a national example, and in my opinion also, not only from the quality of the public space, but also what it has spurred as far as economic development. The trail in Indy cost, it was expensive, it was a lot more expensive than it was $60 million for the trail, but it has yielded, they did an economic impact study and analysis, it has yielded over $1 billion in private investment development. So that is a heck of an ROI. So I'm going to ask you, Mayor, what are your expectations? What do you want to see kind of leverage from the investments that you have made and others have made in the magic market?
Well, as I said earlier, the bread and butter of any municipality is income taxes. And so we're starting to see what we thought would happen. The question is, the chicken or the egg, do you put amenities in or do you bring business in? We're seeing a lot more employers who are looking to move to Barberton, not for any tax breaks, but they're more interested in what their employees can do off the clock. You have happy employees, you have happy workforce, you're more productive. So they come to us and say, well, where the heck can I get to walk? How can they get to this place or that place, through the highway or on a towpath? Do you have local bars that have a softball team, or so those types of amenities that they're looking at, they're questioning versus tax breaks, which is pretty refreshing. So we're starting to see that as we're moving forward. And we're seeing an increase in improving the quality of life for residents. We're seeing a lot more people moving into Barberton. We've got a great mix of young professionals, families, and retirees who are moving back. Maybe grew up in Barberton, but moved away 30 years ago. Now they're back. They're more active than seniors have been in the past. They love what's going on because they're moving back from whatever city they've been in for the last 20 or 30 years, and they like what they're seeing. Hearing comments like downtown has never been this alive in 30 plus years, it shows that we're doing the right things.
As far as infusing kind of that recreation option or that connection with the trailhead, it is also, Barberton is also very historic, and if I could say so, and I can editorialize, I think, a little bit. So the mayor did not say this, but it's somewhat stubborn, I think, as opposed to change, which a lot of communities are. When we conducted several public outreach meetings, we tried to meet before they were, including, and I believe the slide, it's in the slide deck, but we actually had a series of meetings in the park, in Lake Anna Park, at a polka festival, with purple chairs everywhere. Like, it didn't get much more Barberton than but it was really interesting to kind of step back. And in the context of that conversation, as the polka music is going, talking about bicycle infrastructure in a community that hadn't had it in the past. And it was, again, from my perspective, it was really a change in the conversation. So in many conversations I'm sure that you've had, has that been more accepted? Has the community been a little bit more open-minded as a result of all the successes that you guys have accomplished? And then what now, if the conversation, and I'm hopeful that it has, but if the conversation has changed, really what are your constituents now coming to you and asking for?
I think the mindset has changed. It's interesting, one week someone will kind of complain, what about this magic mile? I don't understand it. Why would I do an entire mile? then you see them the next week, they're actually walking. They're on a bike on the Magic Mile. We're on the Towpath. They're taking everything in. So a lot of times people don't want to change until they're a part of it or they start confusing themselves in that change. So getting people out to be a part of the Magic Mile or take in a class at the ACOT or become a part of the Arts and Entertainment District, that starts to change their mindset. We're looking in the future to just building the infrastructure in the Arts and Entertainment District, getting a lot of calls from different groups, organizations, and businesses who want to be a part of it. So it's starting to take off as anticipated. A little faster than I expected, but that's not a bad thing either. Barberton is a great community, and I say community because it's not a city, it's a community. People really care about the community. They are opinionated, and they give me their opinion all the time. But that's great because they're willing to work with us. So working with whether it's city council, who's been great, various agencies in the community, on boards and commissions, which some of our planning commission members are here today, or the staff or some of the neighborhood activists have really helped push some of these ideas and changes throughout the neighborhoods and throughout the kind of changing the mindsets of our residents.
Yeah, and I want to add, Alex, I think stubborn's an overcharacterization. In the historic district, they allowed us to put garage doors in, which is kind of unheard of. But they went even farther than that. They sat down with us and we talked about the art and entertainment district. We talked about colors and extensions on sidewalks so we could bring tables out and things like that. And they literally rewrote the code for the downtown area so that this so an art and entertainment district would develop.
So you've heard us, how many of you, just kind of quick show of hands, have heard of the Magic Mile before this discussion? All right, so I think that is a testament to brand recognition, right? And coming up with something that is easily understood. So part of our planning process, and really where personally I really enjoyed the process and working with the team, was the original Connecting Communities grant. And this is a pitch really for AMATS. And if you are a community or if you are an organization that's considering submitting an application, here's my pitch, right? You had an idea, or you have an idea, and I think Barberton had a very strong one of what would add value from a public infrastructure standpoint in planning around transportation, and in this case, multimodal transportation. The grant was awarded by AMATS. AMATS does a tremendous job with what they consider, what they call the discovery phase. So they go out and do a lot of truth testing. They do a lot of meeting actually with the community. In this case, they held a bike and brainstorm session where the mayor and others were on bikes with residents. They rode around the city. They identified opportunities. So as a consultant, that has tremendous value in that when we were hired and we were able to start, we literally had to play catch up to everything else that had been done to date. In part of that process, we were able to identify, the study was really looking at these two primary corridors, but with everything else that had been going on with the ribbon cutting at the bridge and the ever evolving arts and entertainment district and some of the investments that were happening there, it might make sense to go this way instead of that way, literally. And through that process, that's where you'll see, maybe not so much. This is Barberton at night. So you'll see that eventually, you'll see the Magic Mile, the plan, it was really accidental. I would love to take all the credit for it, but we can't. We were given the objectives of everything else that was coming online, everything else that was happening. How can we connect those things and then bring it back to the towpath? And so we met with folks, we walked it, we biked it, we drove it a little bit, and we decided, all right, if you have to connect to the Arts and Entertainment District, you have to take advantage of some of the other public investments that have been made. There's a pedestrian alley that runs right to the Lake Gate Theater. Of course, you had to get to Lake Anna, which is the downtown park, which is stunning. And then we said, all right, well, now we have to get people back to the towpath. So we drew that and we looked at it and we made some changes and we made some shifts. And then we kind of all collectively stood back and said, all right, well, what do we call it? And I think the mayor said, well, how long is it? What does that mean? Or how long is this distance? And when we measured it and it was a mile, we all said, oh my God, like, it has to be the magic mile. And then to Debbie's credit, who has, I don't think, ever met with anybody, especially a potential funder, and walked away without a check in their hand, took that and ran with it. So can you kind of outline a little bit about your process and really how, Curtis in his opening remarks said, AMATS is charged is that they want to get stuff done. And Mayor, you said that things are happening a little bit quicker than you originally thought. Can you kind of talk through why you think that might be the case there?
Sure. So, and my background was from development. So to Alex's point, that was my job for many years, was getting that check. But one of the other things was actually looking at projects and pairing them with funders that had interest. And so in this particular case, when I came to Barberton, I saw a need for Medical Mutual to be engaged in the community. They had not really been prior to that, and so one of the things we did, the mayor and I met with them, we brought them down to town and just talked a little bit through about what the vision was there for that. And again, one of those aha moments, it just made sense with Magic Mile, and it was Medical Mutual Magic Mile. And so the mayor and I met with them, talked a little bit through the process, a little bit about what the project would be, and they wrote the check for it. They're not here today. We did invite them. Unfortunately, they could not attend. I think they know that from this point forward, though, they're committed to this project, and so we want to keep that relationship going. And also reach out to them for additional phases. I mean, this was just the first phase that they funded, so this was mostly just the signage piece. And I think we'll talk a little bit probably here shortly with what the future phases are going to look like for this project. So it was one of those things that it came to be so organically, but what an incredible impact that this has made. And to see all of your hands go up, or most of them go up to say that you've heard about it is just incredible to me. Because we're really getting that word out there. We're really promoting it. People are using it. And so for us, I know that it's just been an amazing adventure from a timeline to see this go from a planning perspective to actual implementation. And there's more to follow for it. I mean, we're not done yet. And so one of the things that we did initially, as you know, when you're doing trail development, signage is critical. And so getting that funding for the signage to help folks navigate around this Magic Mile was critically important. But we also didn't have enough funding to really fully do that. And so a few of us got together and did a little temporary painting along the route to help navigate. There might even be a picture, I'm not sure, that may show the painting that existed. And our team was just out there with Knight Foundation this past week and looking at connections and even connections down to Akron through this. But I think we may need to go back out and maybe do some touch-up on the paint here. But it's just an attempt to get people off of that, follow that, be able to navigate through town, which, as you all know, is critical to the trail project.
Right, and then I'm going to go back to some of the commentary that Allison made in her presentation. Part of what her organization does is right? And so in the early stages of the planning process, we were looking at potential trail routes and the directions that this connector would go. And we looked at different configurations that would lead to or necessitate a private property acquisition. And really, we collectively decided that we needed to stay within the public right-of-way as best as we could because the city was an invested partner. The city was not going to be a barrier to the trail's dedication, to the trail's construction. And that was really a moment. So when we talk about next phases, all of the property that the trail touches is meant first and foremost to obviously connect. The second charge that we were given is that every piece of property, whether it's city-owned or privately held, that it needs to improve that adjacent experience. We also didn't want to have redundant infrastructure. So if there was a sidewalk, the sidewalk would be repurposed or is expanded as a multi-purpose trail. So as those next steps happen, and as we move forward, or as the project moves forward with funding, with AMATS, I'm going to ask the mayor, what other partnerships, what other kind of accommodations are you guys willing to do? And as a quick follow-up to that, not only is the city willing to do, but from your downtown business owners, property owners, and residents, what is it that you ask of them in support of your efforts as a city?
Well, as we move forward with the next phases, it's important to get buy-in from not only the residents who are there to use it, but also the businesses. So we've been very successful in bringing the businesses together to help fostering growth and relationship between them, where they've now created a merchants association. And having them be kind of the voice for what we're doing and working alongside them, whether it's the Magic Mile, using the Towpath, bringing people downtown, which helps the merchants, bringing everyone together to address any barriers or issues, looking at the next steps. So we've been very fortunate to have great people come to the table, express ideas and great discussion as we move forward. And it's starting to really work itself out in the issues that we have.
I mean, as far as a construction standpoint, I know that there are other infrastructure issues with your city. Again, kind of going back to the residents and your tax base, how are they accepting of kind of more of a recreational investment maybe versus some other things? How do you navigate that internally with your decision making?
Well, if I could go back a little bit, coming into office in 2012, I did a survey of residents and asking them what were the issues that they felt, what were issues facing them and the city of Barberton. The number one issue were the streets. Barberton, it's kind of a punch bowl of Suffolk County, so we've been experiencing flooding for many, many years. Flood mitigation was not an issue. Flooding. Crime was not an issue. It was streets was the number one issue. So we looked at how grants were given out to AMATS, 20 split. We looked at the list of residential streets and the classification. So we did a whole report on streets and street funding in Barberton, and came up with the most important part of this whole economic development and transportation model was we had to get more dedicated funds in Barberton. Knowing the issues that have been discussed earlier at the state level and federal level with transportation and infrastructure. And Barberton's 125 years old this year, which is fantastic. It means we have good infrastructure. So we were very fortunate. We went out to the residents and passed an income tax increase. We were at 2%. We're at 2.25%. That 0.25% is earmarked for street resurfacing only. So a lot of our residents are either retired, so they're not paying income tax, or they work in Akron to 2.25%, so it didn't affect them. We were very successful in passing that income tax initiative, so now we're more eligible for AMATS grants. So previously, because of budget constraints, you could spend $200,000 or $300,000 throughout the entire city for street resurfacing per year. The last 3 years, we just finished up this year, we spent with AMATS grant funding $3 million each year. That's a huge increase. So when you're talking about improving quality of life for residents, improving and building on their businesses, doing things like the Magic Mile, which may need to expand sidewalks or streets or put in other infrastructure related to that, having a mechanism, a dedicated mechanism to help in those areas is very, very important. So we've been very successful. Like I said, $200,000 to $300,000 a year in street resurfacing to $3 million a year over the last 3 years. It's a huge jump, and it really has been a game changer for the community.
Dave, I'm going to go back to you as far as leveraging some of these public investments. Obviously, the new brewery, which I'm excited to hear a little bit more about. And then I know that there are redevelopment opportunities on the south kind of perimeter of downtown, along Worcester. Have you seen or have you had conversations with others that this might be a little bit more on their radar now as a potential?
Yeah, definitely. So the brew pub is we're developing one of our buildings as well. And then just recently we have a restaurant that is interested, and NDS most likely to buy a building to facilitate that development. Some of the bigger chains we've had some conversations with now that weren't happening before. And then I think the Tuscany on Tusk event, which happened with over 600 people downtown, the Walk of Fame and the opening of the lighting ceremony, I think has generated even more buzz. And so we're getting increasing amount of calls from people who want to invest.
And then just kind of maybe put a dollar amount on that and pitch on this topic a little bit. Have you calculated, do you have an idea of what the city's investment has been to date with the infrastructure? Not necessarily the sewer, not necessarily on some of the flooding issues, but mostly focused on the downtown area.
I don't have it broken down to what the city's investment has been, but the total investment of downtown. Our Magical Theater was, Children's Theater was redone with partial grant from Community Foundation. The theater, some of the sidewalk replacement work that we did, and some of the other things. It's closing in on $10 million over the last 4.5 years. So it's more than just the cities, but a lot of agencies and groups come together to raise funds and invest in downtown.
So with that investment, obviously it's evidenced by the photographs. There have been physical improvements that have happened. I'm going to throw this out to really anybody that wants to take it and run with it, but from a programming and from a downtown usage, open space, whether it's a parking lot, it's a farmer's market, or the many events that happen, have you seen an increase in attendance and or programs within the city recently?
Yes, we have. In Barberton, downtown, there's shops on the lower level and resident apartments up top. And just speaking a couple weeks ago to a gentleman who is fairly critical of government in general. So it was shocking when he came up. Just one. It was shocking when he came up to me. He lives downtown in one of the apartments above one of the stores, and said that how great it is that there's foot traffic and there's life downtown. Because I thought he may complain that to keep him up or something of that nature. Not at all. Very excited about it. He lives downtown. We're creating that walkable community, which is very attractive, and he is a part of it. And he's lived downtown for many, many years, so he's excited about the liveliness of downtown, the various increasing options and stores, availability downtown. So, especially from someone who's critical of government, not spoke a lot.
That's good to hear. Debby, with the community foundation's investment in the high school, obviously there's an investment, there's a belief of reaching out to the younger folks in Barberton. Can you kind of expand on what your organization has done, what it plans to do to make this trail and make this area and make downtown really a multi-generational as well as multi-use place?
Sure. So one of the things that the Community Foundation has funded is the Barberton Community Leadership Institute in partnership with Leadership Akron. And that's an opportunity to really work with future leaders in the area. And they were actually the second class was the driver behind the Tuscany event here recently. And so a lot of social media craze with that event. And so, those are the types of things that we want to see to continue. We want to continue to see where we can help. But more importantly, what I see our role is more the collaboration piece. So looking to other, because as activity has increased, we're being approached by other foundations now that want to be part of things that are going on in Barberton. So because we have such limited funding, grant funding currently, partnerships are crucial to being able to continue the work that we want to do in the community. And so, some foundations are, other foundations that are outside of Barberton. And, some of the things that I received when I first started there was, when we looked to collaborate, I was told, well, Barberton has a foundation. What do you need our money for? And so one of the things that I wanted to do was really try to increase that collaboration and investment in Barberton without just the foundation being there. Because we have such great resources that other foundations want to be part of. One of the other things you mentioned, the high school grant. And I know our team's here, and Jim Stonkus, our president, he always says there's going to be a big parade that's going to line up in front of the foundation office in 2022 when that final $2.1 million annual payment is made on the high school. So obviously that will free up a lot of funds. I know the mayor has some thoughts on it, and he talks to me often about them. But you know, we have opportunities for investment and to continue to cultivate that youth leadership and the work that we do in the community. You know, whether it's through the Leadership Institute, working with our high school graduates. We also provide scholarships. You know, there's some opportunities there to work with the kids that receive their scholarship monies. And you know, giving back to the community. Our ultimate goal is, you know, to get educated and come back and move to Barberton and raise your family.
So, as we are winding down our time, just one very quick question. I always did for you guys too. I'm going to ask one more question. I'm going to start with you, David, and come back this way. As far as other communities that might be represented here today, what piece of advice would you give them as far as forming those partnerships, those collaborations, and certainly the value that the Connecting Communities grant could offer them?
So it really is about partnership. It's about everybody playing nice in the sandbox, which sounds really simple, but it doesn't happen all that often. And so, you know, I really think it's about creating your vision and then looking at what partners can help you accomplish that vision.
And I would add too, I think, you know, I mean, certainly partnerships, collaboration. You know, Barberton is fortunate that, you know, they do have a community foundation. You know, but there's other foundations that are very interested in, you know, some of the work that you all are doing. And so just reaching out and having those meetings, having those conversations, you know, in advance. I think one of the things that is a big detriment is getting a grant request and I didn't even have any idea this was going on. So those kinds of conversations can happen early. I think you'll find that a lot of foundations are willing. Bring them out to your sites, talk about the vision, and bring them on board early for potential future funding.
The Barberton community is a great community. We're not an Akron, we're not a Cobble Township or Norton or Green. Or, everyone, there's a lot of great communities. But we're Barberton. We can kind of do our own thing. You know, it's great to work with the Mayor's Association and bounce ideas off of other municipal leaders and see what they're doing. So we don't have to replicate what they're doing. We can do our own thing, which is happening. But it's nice to have kind of ways to bounce ideas off of people. Same with kind of internally in the city, different agencies. Having those partnerships is so important. You know, we'll throw an idea up on the wall, and how do we make it better? How do we chip away at it or add to it? Who can play a part? Not only does it spread the cost, but it also adds to the value of the project and gets more people involved. You may not trust government if they're involved, but you may trust more the foundation or the Metro Parks or whoever else is a part of it. And so it kind of gets the word out about what's going on. And we're so mobile these days. In previous times, you didn't have to leave Barberton. You bought your car, your house, your clothes, your groceries, doctors, all that. Now, it's nothing to jump on a bike and use a towpath and go grab a rubber ducks game and a lunch and come back to Barberton. It's not that far. And it's all on the towpath. So those partnerships are valuable in many, many aspects. Just getting out and talking about ideas is the first step.
I think that that's going to wrap up our session. If we do have a couple minutes, if anybody has some questions before we serve lunch, I would just like to thank our panelists. Thank you for indulging some of the questions. Thank you for the opportunity to work with you guys, AMATS, the rest of the city staff at Barberton. This has been an absolute pleasure to be involved in. It's great. I joke with my colleagues and certainly our clients that I'm not a patient person. So from an urban planner, city planner standpoint, I see the value in a 30-year plan, but it is absolutely amazing to see portions of the plan, in this case, get executed and implemented before the planning process is even finished up. So congratulations to everybody here. Thank you so much. And then I'm going to turn it over if anyone has any questions.
I just want to compliment the city. I've been there. The Lake 8 Theater is beautiful. It's like a better block event in real time. It's a living better block event. You've done a great job.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think that Barberton has a great downtown. You guys are doing everything right from a place-making standpoint. And I was just curious, with a lot of cities, we're working really hard to get people living back in the city, and with all the things that you mentioned that you're doing that make it a better place, I was just curious if you've seen an uptick in interest in maybe new residential construction or rehab of older buildings for residential.
We have seen a slight uptick. It's always difficult. Barberton's a magic city, grew like magic overnight. 60% of our homes were built before 1940, 1945. So aging housing stock is an issue. Through our Moving Ohio Forward program, we were able to tear down over 200 housing units, which was a huge bonus. Applying structures, you're starting to see a change. So people in my generation, we're looking for kind of bigger homes and some land. We're seeing now young professionals who are either looking for apartments in walkable communities, or they're looking for those smaller homes with a single car garage, and they're cognizant of not being houseful. They're okay with having small living quarters if they can take vacations, every few months, and they can do all these other things to have their employees, if you will. So there's a change in thought process of what each generation wants. So we have seen a slight uptick, and I see that continuing as we continue to promote everything that we're doing in the city.
Anybody else have a question? I think that is a wrap. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you guys.